Hari Om. Why is that the ego mind is unable to merge with the pure awareness in deep sleep? And why does it arise when we are awake from deep sleep? So the question is that why is that our mind or buddhi is unable to merge with the pure I or be conscious of the self-awareness while we are in deep sleep? And also, why does the ego rise up when we are awake from deep sleep? अनात्मवासना जालैः तिरोभूतः आत्मवासना नित्यात्मनिष्ठया तेषां नाशे स्वयं स्फुटं भाति. What we call as the anatma vasanas, those inclinations which take our mind away from our own self-awareness. They are of two types, Deha Vasanas and Loka Vasanas, which basically make us inclined or attached towards the worldly objects, thoughts, emotions, feelings, etc. So these vasanas make it very difficult for us to keep our attention on the presence of Bhagavan, the pure awareness within. They hide or create a veil of ignorance due to which we are unable to experience our true nature, which is basically the presence of Bhagavan, the pure consciousness. And so how can we overcome or remove this veil? Is there a way out? Yes, we have a sure way to remove the veil, which is basically Nityatma Nishtaya, constant attention on our own self-awareness, the presence of Bhagavan. So to the extent we always remain in the presence of Bhagavan, the pure awareness, to that extent this veil of ignorance, avidya, which obscure the true vision of self-awareness, slowly gets weakened with the practice of Mahayoga. So it is only due to the vasanas and the samskaras, which basically are the root of vasanas. They kind of create the vasanas. The actions, whatever the kind of actions we engage with, experiences, thoughts, they create the samskaras, the subtle imprinted impressions made in the subconscious mind, chitta. And it is these samskaras, they create the inclinations, tendencies, desires, which rise as vasanas. So they make us to go towards the worldly objects to fulfill those inclination, tendencies, etc. And during this process, what we do is that we again engage with further actions, and which again causes the impressions called samskaras. So basically it's a cyclical process, samskaras and vasanas. So it is the samskaras and vasanas which are responsible for hiding the true vision of our own self-awareness. Avidya, ignorance. So in deep sleep, we are in a state of blissful ignorance, not really knowing anything about the subject or object. So what happens is that the mind and its instruments of buddhi, chitta, ego, etc., they are all inactive in deep sleep. So unless the mind is conscious, like we are in waking state, unless it is conscious, there is no chance for the mind to merge with the pure I, as we can do while we are awake. So in deep sleep, since the mind, ego, etc. are inactive, they cannot be conscious of the pure I and merge with the pure I. Hence, it is not possible for us to extinguish the vasanas in the state of deep sleep, sushupti. Only in the waking state, jagrat, it is possible for us to turn our mind within, inwardness, antarmukam. Thereby, the inward turned mind can merge with the presence of Bhagavan, the pure I, self-awareness, while we are awake. So what happens is that the avidya or the deep-rooted impressions, the seeds of the vasanas, they hide the true vision of self-awareness, even though the ego lies dormant in deep sleep in the causal body. Hence, it is not possible for us to merge our ego or the mind, the intellect, with the pure I in deep sleep. And while we are awake, when we are about to wake up from deep sleep, what happens is that the vasanas, they become manifest, which are stored in the causal body, become manifest once again, and it causes the ego to re-identify itself with the gross and subtle bodies, the physical body and the mind, and due to which the world of objects, they come into play again with the perceptions. So even though the ego lies dormant, still the true vision is obscured by the seeds of vasanas, avidya, and hence the ego has to rise up. The vasanas project the ego so that they can experience the sense objects during the waking state. Hence, we rise as ego while we are awake from deep sleep, sushupti, into the jagrat state. And only in the waking state, while the ego or the mind is active, we can turn our mind within, antarmukam, thereby the inward turned mind, which is basically the mind devoid of thoughts and focused on the presence of Bhagavan, the pure I within. It is this inward turned mind which can merge with the presence of Bhagavan. And to the extent we keep our attention on the presence of Bhagavan, the pure awareness within, while we are awake with this inward turned mind, antarmukam, to that extent the vasanas, they get weaker and weaker, and in due course of time, with the practice of being in the presence of Bhagavan all the time, naturally the vasanas, they get extinguished with the ever existing state of self-attention. The Nityatmanishtaya, as we have discussed, is basically constant attention towards the self-awareness or being in the presence of Bhagavan. So to the extent we are constantly being in the presence of Bhagavan, then naturally the thoughts, the vasanas, the root of the thoughts, the vasanas, they get extinguished. Thereby the presence of Bhagavan will be there for us to be merged with all the time. We shall be in the presence of Bhagavan without any difficulty, without any interruptions, uninterrupted beingness, which is basically to be in the presence of Bhagavan without any interruptions due to thoughts or vasanas will happen actually. So what we need to do is constantly keep our attention on the presence of Bhagavan. Thereby we need not worry about the vasanas, but Just by being in the presence of Bhagavan, what happens is that naturally all these vasanas will be burnt, and we will soon find that we shall be in the presence of Bhagavan forever. Arunachala Shiva.